Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I had a lot of fun researching this particular team, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have a lot of young players, some exciting young players, kind of, been noticed and understood to be a team that struggled since they've come into the league. They came in, I think it was late 80s, maybe early 90s, and haven't really had a whole lot of success, man. Have kind of messed up the drafts situations that they've had. Some of the best draft situations they've come across, they just kind of muffed them. Players didn't pan out. Some bad trades. Just a lot of worst case scenario realities stuff happening there with Minnesota over the years. But in the grand scheme of things, they're still a very very young franchise. And the reality is they haven't written their story yet. They still haven't accumulated the type of talent that would allow them to really be set in stone as a team that's done it yet. I think they've made the Western Conference Finals maybe once with Kevin Garnett, one of the great players of this league of all time, of course, who is their legend. And they just, from my perspective, it just looked like the Minnesota Timberwolves were really doing the best they could with what they had. Small market, new team. They got some like I said, some bad breaks. They had a situation with Joe Smith back in I think it was the early 2000s, where they did something wrong. Don't remember exactly what it was, but they got docked some draft picks and stuff like that. That set them back probably a decade, to be completely and utterly honest with you guys. So sometimes NBA teams, you just try to get one leg up. You're playing behind the eight ball with Lakers and Spurs and all these different teams. You try to give yourself an opportunity to maybe goes in between the lines a little bit. And when you get caught, it really sets you back. So that's what happened there, man. But overall, they've done a good job as of late putting together some really good draft prospects. Because that's basically what their team is made of, to be completely honest with you. Just a bunch of guys that were drafted early, whether it be by them or someone else, and they're just kind of slapped together, to be completely and utterly honest with you. But it's very noteworthy that they fired their president of basketball operations yesterday. Big Cat, the superstar on this team, was not very pleased about it from what I understand. So we'll see what happens there. I know they've been in the mix for Ben Simmons. They really, really want him. So this roster is subject to change if obviously they make a move for Ben Simmons. There's only a few things they can actually do to get him, so it's not like they're going to be moving big time players to get this Ben Simmons on this roster. But nevertheless, I think right now it's looking like they'll probably be the team that's going after him the most. So keep your eyes open for the T-Wolves and Ben Simmons. But in the meantime, we'll talk about Chris Finch, their head coach. They've had him since 2019, I believe. I just learned about Chris Finch. I'm fairly ignorant as it pertains to him, but I'm learning fast. And the word around the street is he's highly creative. This dude is a creative guy. He uses sets that are not typically found in the league a lot. Something called a two-horn set that he likes to use quite a bit that really works for them. They can use a lot of back screens and cuts and stuff like that. So he's known around the league as an innovative coach, somebody who's doing new stuff. And it's going to be kind of exciting to see what happens now that his players are getting 1 year older and things of that nature, 2 years older or what have you. They're aging together as a young team. And with a new style head coach, we could be seeing some stuff out of Minnesota that maybe we wouldn't expect to see out of them. So I'm fairly optimistic that this is going to be one of the more improved teams this particular season. So, without further ado, let's get into the roster. Well, I mentioned Karl Anthony Towns already. He is the superstar on this team. Simply one of the greatest shooting centers the game has ever seen. When he's hot, that's what he does. He shoots the three, and he shoots it like one of the great shooters. And he just happens to be 7'1" or something like that, with a wingspan that goes to the heavens. So he can do a lot of things for you. Not known as a defender, but of course with his length, he is a rim protector extraordinaire. So there are things he can do to get better defensively, particularly getting a little stronger here and there, moving better, lateral quickness and things of that nature he can improve upon. But ultimately his length and size does make up for some of that. And he's able to be effective here and there. Plus he has some defensive players around him that kind of help. So the potential for this team to improve defensively is there, even though they really are a bad defensive team, but not on paper, not as it pertains to each and every player when you break down what it is they are running this season. So Karl Anthony Towns, just a superstar that has found himself on a franchise that hasn't allowed him to really do any winning, hasn't had him a whole lot of success, had some turbulent times here and there. They brought in guys like Jimmy Butler. That didn't really work out. Kind of had a few things go on there. They have D'Lo now. So, he has some running mates at this point that can kind of give him a better shot at it going forward. So since we mentioned D'Lo, let's move on into D'Lo. Obviously, D'Angelo Russell. He's a guy that is a Laker kid, as I always say, one that we drafted, and he has ice in his veins, if anybody's wondering. If you think for 1 second that this is not a high-level scorer, boy, you're going to get yourself smoked. He is not to play with. He is not to be played with. I understand what happened back when he was a kid with Nick Young. That situation was what it was. I know he's had some stuff go on. His pops got in some trouble recently. It's a lot of stuff that goes on with D'Lo. When you bring him on your team, you understand that. But at the end of the day, there are things that D'Lo can do that you cannot teach. He has accuracy that, when measured scientifically, puts him in the high echelon of capable athletes. He's just one of those guys. He has supreme level accuracy, supreme level touch as it pertains to three-point shot. He can make tight passes in short windows, things like that honestly just make him an alien, more or less, in some ways. But you lose sight of that because of his injury history, because of the off-the-court, whatever you want to call that, and ultimately because he hasn't found himself in a consistent role with one franchise. He's been moved a lot because of his other stuff. So you lose sight of the fact that all that comes together to still make this a all-star. He had a big-time season in Brooklyn where he was able to spread his wings and truly show what he's capable of. And now we're just waiting for him to find his health once again, because at this point it's not about what he has to prove to you. It's about whether or not he can do it again. So I know what D'Lo is. He's a scorer. He's a shooter. Doesn't have a whole lot of athleticism, but it doesn't really matter. He's not overly defensive, but his superior ability, scientific stuff that I was telling you about, he gets steals. He's able to, get in the passing lanes. He's just a high-level basketball talent. He's not jumping off the ground or anything like that, but I'm telling you, I don't think there's like 40 players that really have a natural ability to just shoot a basketball better than him. I don't think there are 40 guys out there at all. He's just got a different type of gift. I'm telling you, for somebody who scouted him, briefly, I'm not a scout, but someone who scouted him when we were trying to figure out if we wanted to draft him or not. At Ohio State, it was no question this dude had MVP level potential. Like, his potential is not just all-star. It's way, way up there. But for me, it comes down to whether or not his lower body is going to hold up. He does have a lot of leg issues and things like that kind of make it so that he's injury prone. So that's really the thing with D'Lo. Can we keep him healthy? When you pay him, is he the right guy to have at a big contract, or are you going to be having issues bringing things around him that makes him a champion level player? So that's the thing about him. The price tag on D'Lo is likely going to be very, very high for the rest of his career because of his talent level. But he doesn't affect enough of the basketball floor to be at that price, in my opinion, so that you can bring him everything that he needs. It's not about guys making money. It's about the cap and the limitations that are placed upon you when you have a high-level cap player that doesn't play defense, things like that. So I like D'Lo, but I prefer him at a price that allows me to bring guys to him. So I just don't know if I can ever fully use D'Lo because of his price tag. But nevertheless, you're happy to have him, especially if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's a player that's going to continue to help them offensively, stretch the floor along with Karl Anthony Towns, facilitate the basketball, make other guys better, things like that. So D'Lo's only going to get better. He's still very young. I don't even think he's 25 yet. So just let him continue to do what it is that he does. If he has healthy seasons, there will be more all-star appearances in the future. That's just what it is. All right, Anthony Edwards. Now, I'm not going to talk about Anthony Edwards now because, of course, if you watch my videos, you know when it comes to rookies and high-level players that have been drafted over the last couple years, I break them down. I do the whole draft thing, and I tell you about them at the end of the video. So he, along with maybe about 5 other guys on this roster, there's a lot of them, we'll be talking about at the end. So next up, Pat Bev. Pat Bev, you know who Pat Bev is. Clipper extraordinaire. He is definitely the heart and soul of the Los Angeles Clippers, shipped away in a deal from Memphis. Clippers have made some things happen for themselves because of their situation that kind of doesn't really look like they're getting a whole lot better, in my opinion. But one man's trash is another man's treasure. The Minnesota Timberwolves get Patrick Beverly, And I think he's going to help their team. I have my questions, honestly, about whether or not he'll finish his season with this team. In fact, I have my questions of whether or not he'll actually start the season with this team. But it appears that he will. And the only reason why I'd say that is because I think of him as a buyout candidate, honestly. He doesn't look like a guy who should be playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves at this stage in his career, to be frank. He should be on a Miami, on a Chicago, on Lakers, or something like that. He should be winning. He should be going after a championship. And for what he brings to the table, he can be used on a team like that right now. So, nevertheless, this is a team, obviously, that needs some defensive help, and Pat Beverly is a defensive player, to say the least. He's going to be locking people down, being a pest, creating a fire for this team, bringing something to this locker room that I think will fire up some of these young players. I don't think it'll have the Jimmy Butler effect, to be honest with you. I know that's the concern at this point for some people who are wondering if he's going to be a little too tough on these kids. I don't think he can do that. I don't think he has the cachet to demand what Jimmy could demand when he gets there. If you not falling in line with those trio of guys, Cat, Ant-Man, and ultimately D'Lo, then you're probably going to be off this team. That's kind of how I see this thing going. So, I don't think he'll be a problem at all. He's definitely the type of guy you want on your team and you hate going against. He's going to bring his effort and all that he brings defensively to this Minnesota roster, and I think he's going to be an exemplary veteran for this team. I expect great things in terms of the character of Patrick Beverly as he brings it to this table. I know what he did to Chris Paul at the end of that playoff series. He looked bad, very bad when he did that. And I think that's going to have a reverse effect. I think he's going to wake up. I think he did that in the spirit of frustration. Word on the street, rumor has it that Chris Paul said something that would make an average man want to do something like that. If those things are true, I'll give Patrick Beverly a pass. If those things are not true, he looked very, very bad and has probably one more chance in this league, honestly. If he were to mess up like this in Minnesota, I don't think he gets into the spot. I don't think so. But all in all, Patrick Beverly is somebody who's going to be tremendous for the Minnesota Timberwolves bench. Maybe even their starting lineup, depending on how they want to run things. It wouldn't be the worst idea to run him in certain sets to start, just simply because of what he brings to the table defensively. And he can shoot the three a little bit, and he's going to bring fire, passion and fire to the floor. He wants to win. He brings a winning mentality. Minnesota's going to win more games just simply because he's here. That's going to be proven fact, so just watch. I don't know that they're going to be a playoff team or out of this world great, but some of those games they lost last season will not be lost because of the presence of Pat Beverly. Book it. All right, next up, Malik Beasley. Fantastic A1 3-point shooter. Does have some off-the-court things going on, but I think they've been cleared up. So we're just going to move forward assuming that he's a part of this team. The thing about Malik Beasley for me is his contract. It's really high, and it's not pretty. I like what he brings to the table. I do. But when I start thinking about salary dumps in this league, he's definitely one of them for this particular team. Can he help them? Of course. Anytime you have an expert shooter like this, he can help you on the basketball floor. But it's one of those things where at what price? And for his contract, no. You're going to want to move that. So that's how I look at Malik Beasley. To separate the player from the contract, the player's fantastic. 3-point shooter. He's going to score 30 in some games. My thing is, Minnesota had him on the team last year, and they sucked. And he was doing all the stuff that he did well, and it did not change the thing. So if you're going to have him at that price, you would want him to move the needle on some other things. Now, that's not on him at all, but it doesn't take away the fact that he takes up so much cap space at the end of the day with his contract. So all in all, I'm looking for them to move him in the Ben Simmons deal. His contract matches. Philly could use him. So could another team if they try to swing him elsewhere. His contract is not going to be attractive to other teams, but I don't think it's going to be too difficult to move him, especially if Ben Simmons is on the move. They're going to have to take him whether they like it or not, because I don't think they're going to get D'Lo, and I don't think that's the only thing they would be getting back, Philly, if they were to make a deal like this. So ultimately, he would be a part of it. So yeah, keep a question mark on Malik Beasley as it pertains to this team. I just don't think he's going to be here. I think they're going to move him in a Ben Simmons move. I think Ben Simmons is going to end up on this team. If not, then Malik Beasley will be a fantastic stretch 3, 4 for 3, 2, 3 shooting guard, small forward for this team. And that's what he does. He's going to stretch. He's a good 3-point shooter. 39% last year. He's just going to wet it up. Like I said, some of the distractions and stuff that might have been going on are gone. You've got more offensive talent on this floor that should draw attention to themselves away from him. So there should be better opportunities for him to do more of the same if he stays with this roster. And if he doesn't, he's going to help Philly. He's going to help wherever he goes. Houston, wherever he finds himself. This is a shooter. And he's going to continue to ascend in production. I see that coming. He's not getting any worse. And he's still fairly young. All right. Next up, Dorian Prince. And Dorian Prince is a good player on this team. Just a guy's kind of been around the league. Played for Atlanta originally. Did some good 3-and-D things. Went to Brooklyn, good 3-and-D things. Just a nice average 3-and-D player at that small forward position that's going to do some good things for you. Not going to be a world beater, not going to kick a lot of tail, but he's going to bring toughness on both sides of the floor, and he'll be consistent at his level. You like Dorian Prince for this team. Not somebody who's going to take away anything from anybody, just someone who's going to assist in making them a quality basketball club. I like his name on this roster for sure. All right, next up, let's see some of these guys I'm looking at. I'm like Josh Okogie, I did homework on. Nas Reed did homework. Jaden McDaniels did homework. Jared Vanderbilt did homework. Leandro Bomero did homework. So you understand those names you'll hear about in a minute. Jake Lyman, I don't know a lot about Jake Lyman. I really don't. It's power forward, some scoring ability. That's about all I know. Honestly, I didn't do homework. I probably should have, but I just don't know that he'll have a big enough role to make it necessarily for me to really mention him at length, to be completely honest with you, as well as some other players I did like that as well, unfortunately. But I know he has some pop. I know he can play, and he's a power forward who will booster the bench on this team. Their bench doesn't suck at all, and I think Jake Lyman is one reason that is the case. I've seen him play, and I think he'll continue to play for this team. Ed Davis. Ed Davis is a role player, power forward, center combination. Played with the Lakers for a year. Really like Ed Davis. You know, he's a power guy, rebounder, offensive rebounder. A little long in the tooth at this stage in his career. I think he's been in the league for about, 11 years, something like that. So he's not really looking to do nothing but kind of come in and set a screen for somebody, grab some board, and sit back down. You know, he's not looking to start or anything at this stage in his career. His skill set doesn't make it so that he's overly needed at this point. But to boost your front court, to assist with these younger guys, to help guys like Karl Towns and Nas Reed, Ed Davis is a great locker room guy, probably like a coach on the floor for Coach Finch. So I like Ed Davis as well for just to help them with veteran presence. Jalen Noel. I like Jalen Noel, and I should have looked him up a little further. I remember he played in the Lakers Summer League and lit it up. Didn't hardly miss a thing. The boy got all kinds of game. And I just think that the Lakers let him go. He signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves, did some good things with them last year, but is not quite showing how capable of a shot maker he is. He showed me he can shoot, and he showed me he could score, particularly. Yeah, he's just a bucket getter, man. Straight up and down. He could do some other things for you, too. But when I think of Jalen Noel, I think of a guy with a lot of upside scoring the basketball from a role-playing perspective. He can really go, man. He really can. All right. So they have a guy by the name of Mckinley Wright, 6-foot guard out of Colorado. What they took with the, not sure where they took him. He might have been undrafted. And they have a guy by the name of Nathan Knight that played for the Atlanta Hawks last year, a 6'10" power forward with 7'2" wingspan. So this guy projects to have a fantastic NBA body. As much as I know about Nathan Knight, but when you're talking about 6'10", 7'2", you know for a fact what 7'2" guys can do. They can get steals, they can get blocks, likely be very, very disruptive defensively. So that's just in general. I'm not certain of his profile. Let's see. Who didn't we talk about that I haven't spoken on? I think that's about it as far as players that I did not take notes on. So let's get to the notes that I have here for you. I believe that was it there. All right. First player we're going to talk about that I took notes on, who goes straight to the meat and potatoes, baby. Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, the first overall pick in the 2020 draft, last year, first overall. He was 6'5". He grew to 6'6" this summer. He has a 6'9" wingspan, and he has a legendary rookie season. Not for great things, not for bad things, just the overall improvement. He started off really, 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 really bad, and then ended really, 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 really good. And that's kind of how that went. And you can see that, sometimes you'll see that because even though these guys come to the league, they're still very much in the development phases, sometimes even in the growing stages. So you'll get a guy he'll shake off the cobwebs and then start showing flashes of greatness in the same dang season. And that's exactly what happened here with Anthony Edwards. He was finishing poorly to start in the first 14 games. He couldn't get anything going. He was just off balance for the first 14 games. After that, he started getting it together. And in the last 9 games, he looked like an all-star. So that's just kind of how that went. Shot 41% from 3 at the end of the season after shooting 29% the previous year in college. This is a hyper-improving athlete that you're looking at develop right before your very eyes at a very ridiculous rate. The last person I saw develop that quickly was probably Joel Embiid. As they were speaking of him in college, how fast he went from a guy who never played basketball to being one of the greatest players of all time. Kind of crazy in terms of how fast that happened. Anthony Edwards' progressions as a rookie kind of look like that to me. Just like, that's alien level production. How good are you? That's the kind of thing that I'm sitting here asking. So needless to say, I put him on a great deal of my fantasy teams this year and have no problem doing so. I just look at him as already potentially one of the elite shooting guards in this league, and I value him as such today. I'm not waiting for him to develop into that. His profile, his athleticism, his explosiveness already makes it so that he's above some of these dudes that he's just not better than yet, to be completely honest with you. He's more valuable than dudes. He came out of Georgia. As I said, 6'9" wingspan on a 6'6" frame. Super level athlete, as I said. Explosive dunker, to say the least. That's like an understatement. Great passing lane ability, jumps in passing lanes, gets steals, stuff like that. Even though he's not the greatest defender just yet, he'll develop into a good defender, I'm sure, with the right coaching. Hopefully Fitch will get some defensive stuff going for this team, because they have defensive players. They just need to get their schemes going. Great balance with his jump shot, even though he's a poor mid-range shooter. His shooting numbers are just not to be understood at this point. As I said, he went from being bad to great in the same season. So we're going to go by what he does this season and kind of just leave that blank in terms of his overall shooting, because you just don't know. Will he regress back to 28%? Who knows? Like, it's impossible to understand at this time. But he's a spot-up shooter. If he's going to be a shooter, you know he's a spot-up guy. He's definitely someone who can catch and shoot. He can create for himself. Obviously, he's good off the step backs, things like that, step back moves. He can shoot the deep ball. As I always say about these players who can shoot the Steph Curry ball and the Dame shot, he's got it in his arsenal as well. Can get red hot and stay hot. As I said, alien level stuff, man. Just the type of dude where if he sees 2 or 3 fall, if he has a day like that, he might string together 9 or 10 of them. Don't think he can't go to that level. I believe he can. I've seen him. He has no conscience. Like, he's one of those dudes where I think he believes at his best, he's probably like a Michael Jordan. Like, his confidence level is like that. He actually reminds me of Michael Jordan in some ways in terms of his how he speaks, how he handles himself, carries himself with the media early on. He looks like young Mike, even his tone of voice. He reminds me of Michael Jordan. But, he's a long way away from being Michael Jordan, but I'm just telling you, that's who he reminds me of. Physically looking at him, like, yeah. So anyway, can get red hot, stay hot. As I said, a one-on-one player. He makes up as a one-on-one profile player. He's breaking you down, just like Mike, just like Covey. Those guys, he's gonna break you off the dribble and ultimately develop into his version of that, I believe. Great elite cutter. He cuts to the basket as well as any human in the NBA already. In the top 7 cutters in the league right now. He just knows angles. He's fast, and he gets himself open. He knows how to get himself open from every angle necessary. If you have a pass-first point guard, this is one of his favorite weapons, because he's always going to find this guy. So that's going to be the thing. You're leaving a lot of his potential on the table when you don't have a facilitator available to take advantage of this. And you get him a Lonzo Ball, Ben Simmons, trust you me, this boy's numbers going up, all-star up, trust. All right, so he has advanced skill set for his age. It's kind of understood in what I'm saying to you. He's a space creator, can cover a lot of space with his legs. He's super powerful, can do a lot of things with footwork, things like that, getting better there. Solid handle. Yeah, he can do some things. First step is super fast. Got a crossover here and there. He's going to continue to get better at that. Playmaking potential. Obviously, when you have a player who can understand angles and create for himself, he'll also understand when he sees someone cuts. He knows what you're supposed to be doing to get yourself open as well. So that translates there. He's going to be a better playmaker as he grows and develops. Plays with passion, fiery guy, and he's still very young. So he's going to have to do some maturing just to keep him drawing technicals and things of that nature. Is going to happen. You see it coming. There's going to be a maturity level. I already see that, and it'll come. He drives at will, can score basically when he wants. And I think you kind of understand that when you have the type of profile he has physically, when you can explode the way that he can get off the floor, and you remember some of those highlights. I'm sure you've seen him. This is an elite athlete, an elite dunker. This is one of those dudes you make in a lab, and you just watch him do what he does because he's just better than a regular human's supposed to be in terms of explosiveness, getting off the floor, dunking on you. He ain't normal at all. 3-level scorer. Of course, he's going to have to improve his mid-range, but he does have good mechanics on everything, good balance, so it'll just come with reps. And he's too strong for guards his size. Cut and dry, if a guy is 6'6", he shouldn't be on him unless he's huge. I'm telling you right now, you can't put small players on Anthony Edwards. You're going to get cooked. He's too strong. He's going to Carmelo Anthony y'all. That's what's going to happen. He's going to turn into one of those guys that he lean on you, he bump on you, and he's so strong and he's so skilled to where guarding him is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare. Now, he's going to have to make players work on the other end. He doesn't always give you the effort you need to see from him defensively, and the Minnesota Timberwolves didn't teach defense up until this point, so he's not developing into the type of defender that he would if he played under a different system under a defensive-minded coach. So that's what I want to see, is them get them a defensive coordinator, some defensive coaching-minded players to help with these players with good defensive profiles. Because he has it, and so do other players that I did homework on. Minnesota has defensive players. They just don't run defense. So that's what I got for Anthony Edwards. He's going to be an all-star every year, probably for the next 15 years. Get used to seeing him. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be explosive, and he's going to be hot. And when he gets hot, you're going to see 40-point games, 50-point games, maybe even a 60-point game in his future. He's one of those guys. I don't have to doubt. I don't have to think about that. I know that already. I've seen enough basketball to know a player with great potential. He has great potential. I don't know if he'll ever be their number one, because as long as Cat's there, his frame is going to make it so that he's the number one guy at all times. But if Anthony Edwards continues to get better, he's going to be undisputed number 2 on this team and somebody who's going to make supermax money before it's over. He's going to be one of those guys. So, wait on it. All right, next up, Jared Vanderbilt. Here's a guy that they drafted with the 41st pick back in 2018. And the reason why I did homework on Jared Vanderbilt is because he had a breakout season last year, and he's showing he's really good. He's really good. He's 6'9", power forward / center. Shot 60% from the field last year. Out of Kentucky. Played with a lot of guys in Kentucky. He was definitely a part of a team that had a lot of talent, so it wasn't a whole lot for him to do in college. And as he's come to Minnesota, kind of gotten lost there, not a whole lot to do in Minnesota. So he just hasn't been in situations to really show what he can do, and he doesn't have normal skill sets. He's more of a garbage guy. But he's hyperactive rebounder, super hyperactive rebounder, has a knack for the ball, and has just undying effort. He's a guy that just continues to come at you, effort and motor, which is something that's a theme for this team. They got effort and motor guys. A defensive interceptor. He profiles as a guy who gets interceptions. Would have been a fantastic cornerback or something like that in football, because he finds a way to get his hands on your pass. Do not pass around this dude. That's what I've learned. He's very agile and very athletic, plays great in transition, works hard on the court at all times, like I said. Now, he's not going to be a shooter. He doesn't attempt shots. He doesn't make them. Do not ask him to stretch the floor. You're wasting your time. That's not his game. Keep him in the paint, and you'll be fine. He's a hustle guy, small ball center, essentially, but with a real center's profile. Usually see small ball centers are stretch 5s 9 out of 10 times. Not this guy. You're playing small ball center with him in the paint. So not the easiest guy to have on the floor at all times, but he's just tall enough and his wingspan is just long enough to where you'll get away with playing him at the 4 very comfortably. Just don't ask him to stretch the floor. And the good thing about that is they got Cat. So you don't need your 4s to necessarily be offensive threats in theory, because he's always going to play the perimeter. He's always going to do it effectively. So he's a good complement to Cat. Can push the break himself. A lot of players like this they can't dribble a lick. Can't put the ball on the floor at all. Jared Vanderbilt can dribble a little bit. And because he can dribble a little bit, he tends to get the rebound as a hyperactive rebounder and push the break himself. So that's a really unique skill set that he's yet to tap into, to be honest with you. And I think it's going to grow if he gets with the right situation. So, yeah, he's not afraid to dribble. You know, he's a playmaker. As he develops, he can become a playmaker, rather. With that dribbling ability, he can kind of push the break and create for others, create for himself. So it's just a lot of untapped potential. He hasn't been put in positions to kind of exploit some of those things that he can do. And we'll see, because if it's one of those situations where if Ben Simmons comes to this team, you'll kind of get an understanding of how they can now use Jared Vanderbilt in some actions that they'll use Ben Simmons in. He kind of profiles like Ben Simmons in some ways. Obviously, he's not the hyper dribbler. He's very, very limited in terms of that. But same kind of body, same kind of deal, same kind of stuff. Defensive garbage play. Like, he's kind of got some Ben Simmons-ish qualities to his game. And being that he broke out last year, I like what he brings to this team. And I like the profile of the type of players they're trying to put together around Karl Towns. It makes sense, it fits, and it's going to allow Karl to play that perimeter very well. So Jared Vanderbilt, I think they should hold on to him. I know they got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of different trades, stuff like that, but he's not the guy they let go of. Just hold on to this player. He doesn't have a whole lot of value as of yet, and that's a fantastic thing because he's going to help a team. And let it be yours. So, yeah, that's what I got for Jared Vanderbilt, man, out of Kentucky, as I said. So, yep, let's keep it going. Next name up, Josh Covey, a similar player. Believe it or not, they got a similar player there. He's not quite the playmaker. You're not looking at him to make passes and stuff like that, but he's a garbage guy, defensive guy. They call him nonstop because he does not quit on plays. He played for the Nigerian national team this year, played really well for them out of Georgia Tech. He's only 6'4". When he was drafted, they said he was a shooting guard, but that's not what he is. He's more like a power forward. He's got 7-foot wingspan and great stamina. Does not quit, as I said. Not a three-point shooter, but you don't care. He can hit a shot here and there, so don't leave him out there. But that's not his game. He guards all positions. He's best understood on the defensive end. The thing about him, for me, is looking at his draft profile and then looking at what he turned into, Minnesota has limited what it is he can do, just like Jared Vanderbilt. They're not looking at the player and saying, okay, let's exploit all of your possibilities. He has more offensive game potential than they're allowing him to show at this point. And that just comes with putting the right basketball people on the floor who can identify that and then find ways of exploiting it. I like that they have a creative coach like Finch in place, and I think that's why Josh Okogie has played well since Finch has got there. He's really, really a good player, but they just got to allow him to do a little more offensively and develop his offensive game. I look at him as a guy who has Draymond syndrome. And what that means is Draymond was an offensive player when he first got into the league. He could score 30 points when he first got into the league. But because of the system he was in, because of what they needed, he never really developed his offensive skills outside of passing the rock. He wasn't looking to score. He wasn't looking to develop that scoring, continue stretching the floor, and he kind of just lost those skills. That can be what's happening to Josh Okogie right now with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Because he's so good at defense and not so good at some of the offensive stuff, they're not developing the offensive stuff when he has it in his profile. So I'd like to see them correct that. He's been here since 2018, and he is really developing well. Don't get it twisted. He's developing well, but only in certain aspects of his game that he has possible. You can't just treat him like he only has one side of his game when there's really more to it. Let him play some awesomes. Let him shoot a little more. Let him get a couple shots up. Run a couple pick and roll plays for this guy. See if he can do a little more for you. Because if you get him to be more than just a defensive player, his upside maybe even an all-star, to be completely honest with you. He's just, what's holding him back is his inability to shoot the three-point shot. Shoots 27%. That ain't going to cut it. Maybe you focus on that in in practice. Maybe you put a little more emphasis on that because you know you can keep him on the floor if he shoots it well. So I'd like to see him improve his three-point percentage, and the rest will fall into place because this guy's upside is still very high. Why? I'll tell you why. Because he guards the best players every night. That's the thing about Josh Okogie. You don't really consider this because he's on a bad team, but the type of practice that he gets in every night when he has to guard the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, people like that, Jalen Brown, he has to guard these people. So he's the guy that's getting the reps against your best players. So we think about superstars, oh, they're not so good defensively. Oh, you think about guys who show up in the stats and how much value they have. But then you look at a guy like this whose stats isn't very good, who doesn't play a lot of offense, but then every single night it's his job to guard the best player. You know how valuable that actually is? It doesn't represent in the stats. It doesn't represent in other areas. But if you can find me a guy who can effectively guard the best players in the league, I don't care if he's on a bad team or not, I want him on my team. Facts. So that's what I think of Josh Okogie. You must value the fact that he goes out every night and guards the other team's best player. So that's the thing about Josh Okogie that must be understood. He's really good offensive rebounder, catches lobs with his explosiveness. I didn't mention how explosive he is. He's a very fantastic athlete, very, very speedy, fast, and explosive. Dangerous in transition because of it. And it continues to just be a problem for you defensively, guarding all 5 positions at 6'4" with a 7-foot wingspan. He guards all of them. I don't think you would put him on 7-footers, though. I'd kind of keep him off of that. But they have the roster to do that. So I'd say 1 through 3, some 4s effectively. I'd keep him on 5 personally. And to be honest with you, from what I've done in terms of homework, listening to Wolves fans and people who've made videos about him, because I watched a few of them, he's the low-key heart and soul of this team. Low-key heart and soul of this team. And him, Anthony Edwards, and Patrick Beverly bring a certain level of fire to that locker room. They are going to be competitive. With those 3 players, they're going to be competitive. They're going to have passion, and if things aren't going well, they're going to be fights. That's just, I'm telling you. But I don't think they're going to struggle as much as they're used to struggling because of the presence of winning caliber players. I think Pat Beverly really does bring something to this team that they've never had, ever. Well, Kevin Garnett, but that's it. So, yeah, man. Low-key heart and soul of this team, brings a lot of energy. Great locker room guy, somebody that glues everybody together, somebody that the team rallies around, from what I understand. Keeps a strong presence on social media with his squad. Just that kind of thing. Just a very, very good locker room guy, on top of energy guy, on top of fan favorite, on top of defensive dynamo. This is a guy with way more upside than you're aware of. And I hope that I've been able to paint that picture here. He gets in the right situation, or stays in this situation if it continues to get better, and you're going to see him play meaningful basketball. Trust me, it's happening. All right, next up, Leandro Bomero. And they took him last year with the 23rd pick, 6'8", and he shot 6'8" height and wingspan. So he's a balanced player. 6'8" wings, 6'8" height. 45% field goal shooter at FC Barcelona last year, 2020 rather. 28% from 3. So that's not really his game, but he's competent from behind the arc. You leave him back there, he'll hit him here and there. And he's 1.8 steals. That's the thing. This guy is also high energy defensive guy, good knack for the ball, hustle, never stops hustling. You sense the theme here? They love hustle players. Creative ball handler, good change of pace player, Euro ball handler. So he's a quintessential Euro guy out of FC Barcelona. Uses speed and pace in an unorthodox way. Kind of keeps you off balance. Because of his Euro style, you're going to play at a different pace against this guy. And it's good. It's good. He attacks. He runs the floor well, fills lanes well, stuff like that. Shoots off the dribble. Has funky mechanics shooting the ball. But ultimately, it does fall here and there. Like I said, you don't want him shooting threes all day. But he's a good pick-and-roll playmaker, passer. He's the guy that's supposed to make other guys better. You give him the ball, let him develop to his best self, and he can be somebody who does the things that I've been saying they need, facilitating the basketball and stuff like that. But even now, what he can be is somebody who's a part of a good team basketball setting. In other words, you have him on the floor, ball movement should be good. Should be very good with this guy on the floor. You keep him on the floor, keep Vanderbilt on the floor, keep some of these guys that have passing in their profile, and you're going to see cohesive plays out of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah, pick and roll, as I said, transition ability, ambidextrous, can use both hands, passing the rock particularly, as they said. Both hands capable, quick feet on the defensive end. He recovers well defensively. If he falls out of place, he's going to get right back up. covers space well, closes out extremely well, avoids picks well. That's a really, really underrated skill in this league. Guys who can get skinny, guys who don't make the wrong decisions on picks and are able to be evasive against those. Extremely, extremely important. And he's a pest. He's a pest. Another guy like Pat Beverly, Josh Okogie. Are you seeing the theme here? This is another defensive pest. Their double teams are going to be underrated. When they start doubling up on you and start locking you down, you're gonna find yourself on the wrong side of the situation. They do have defensive players. I can't stress it enough. Good laterally, as I said, does not quit on plays. Another non-quitting guy. Very aggressive. Steals the ball, as I said. He averaged 1.8 steals. So Leandro Bomero is a guy at 6'8" who can do a lot of things for you with his length. As long as he's not shooting too many threes and continuing to improve in practice at the three-point line, if he can get up to a real good percentage three-point shooting the three, this guy projects to be somebody who will start one day in this league. I just don't understand what's going on with his production. It's still too early. Obviously, he was just drafted last year. But with the 23rd pick, you want to see him get an opportunity. You don't want to see him fall on the back of this bench with all of the young talent that they have, especially with him being somebody who can make others better. You don't want to let his production or his development go by the wayside, in my opinion. He's a helpful player, I think. So Leandro Bomero out of FC Barcelona, definitely a high-energy wing. I'm looking forward to seeing if they'll get him some real minutes out there. And the last name we got, I got to find him, but it's Naz Reid. I think I put his notes a little bit outside of where it should have been. But all in all, Naz Reid is one of my favorite players on this team. Probably the most underrated player on this team, in my opinion, because of how well he played when Karl Anthony Towns went out. He just simply continued to do what it is that they ultimately want Karl to do. He can stretch the floor some. He can rebound the ball some. He can get rebounds. Well, as I said, he can play a little defense. That's not really his game. But a guy out of New Jersey who can just really, really, really do the things you want your big man to do. And you must honor that three-point shot. That's the thing about him. You have to honor it. Because the thing about it is, even though he doesn't project to look like a shooter, he looks like a guy who shouldn't be able to shoot. When you leave him out there, he hits it consistently. I've watched highlights. He hits it all day long. And he's always open. So stop leaving Naz Reid open, people, and you will be okay. But because you have to honor that three-point shot, he runs right past you. He doesn't mind putting the ball on the floor, and he drives well. So this is a guy who has a nice set of skills. Out of LSU, an undrafted player, which was ridiculous that day. I remember we were like, why the hell is Naz Reid being drafted? His draft stock plummeted, and to this day, there really was no explanation for it. Maybe somebody wrote some type of article or something to send him his value plummeting or something. I don't know, but it was ridiculous that day. It's still ridiculous now. He's projected to be a good player from here. I've already seen enough to know that he's somebody I want on my team, so I don't know what the problem was. I would have drafted him. I don't know. But anyway, he averaged 11.6 rebounds and 2 assists while Cat was out doing a nice stretch. But those numbers did not tell the story. He was much better than that, to be honest with you. Post finisher, guy you can probably start in the paint, even though he can shoot some. His big body and size with his 7-foot wingspan is 6'10", 264 pounds he was weighing last year. This is a big boy who shoots the three. You got to understand. If you can't shoot the three in this league, you had better do a lot of things because you got guys like Naz Reid who can shoot, and they're huge. He uses his body well, man. Big body, seals people out, uses it on offensive rebounds. You know, he just gets putbacks at random. He just continues to be relentless. Good fluidity to his game. He can dribble. He can shoot. He's not somebody like – he's not a Lamar Odom dribbler or nothing like that, but he can dribble. You know, he can push the break himself, pull it off the rim, go the other way, make the pass, all that stuff. He can make plays for others. A Jelly Fam representative, New Jersey legend, man. He was a part of the Jelly Fam. They were viral sensations a couple years back. Made a huge name for themselves, millions of followers and stuff like that, just playing ball and doing it their way. So he was the only guy out of their crew that made it to the NBA, highly touted out of LSU, did a lot of great things in high school as well. This is a guy who just has game and has been disrespected pretty much the entire time. I was listening to a podcast that were talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves and how they need to address their power forward position. And I'm looking, as I've done homework, and I say all of their power forwards look good. All of them. They may not project to be the most fluid power forwards in terms of can do everything guys, but the power forwards they have are extremely good defensively. Power forwards, they have extremely good on the boards. They're relentless. And ultimately, with Cat being your three-point shooter, there's no problem there. Like, literally no problem having players like that on your roster. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a roster that seems like it's put together pretty well. Like I said, Pat Bev brings something totally different to this team, and I think it's going to translate to victories. Maybe not a lot, but some. And this is a play-in team. I don't know if they're going to make the play-in tournament, but they're going to be hovering from like 8 to 12, trying to fight. Much improved. And in my opinion, if Anthony Edwards take a huge jump, you never know. They could be the 8th team. This could be that year for Minnesota. I don't know that I value them over certain other teams necessarily, but with the upside of an Anthony Edwards, you just don't know how much better he's going to get in such a short period of time. He might mess around and be an all-star next year, an MVP candidate, the way his progression literally went. Who knows? So it's one of those type of situations where I'm fairly optimistic that the upside is crazy when you consider the trio that they have and the defensive players that they got around them. Jaden McDaniels. Did I mention Jaden McDaniels? I hope I did, because he's such an important player to what it is that we do, and I did a lot of homework on him. And I did, for sure, intend to speak about Jaden McDaniels. So, just in case I didn't, if I've already mentioned Jaden McDaniels, please forgive me, but I don't want to do this without doing so. He's a 6'10 guy, a 7-foot wingspan, shot 40% from the field, and 33.9% from three-point in college. And I wish I would have written down where he went to college. I did not, but he was the 28th pick in the 2020 draft. Fluid athlete with an advanced handle. Pull-up specialist. He shoots the pull-up shot consistently, and he loves it. Mid-range or three-point shot, doesn't matter. He moves like a guard, can dribble the basketball, can guard, cover ground quickly, He with his length and his ability at that 7-foot wingspan, he can just cover length like crazy. Solid footwork with the ball, step backs, all of that. He's an inconsistent shooter, but very good mechanics, so he's going to improve. Catch and shoot potential. Explosive off two legs as well. This is a guy with a lot of explosiveness. Help side on the blocks. He's a weak side blocker. He's going to get blocks, but mostly from the weak side. You think you got something nice, cherry picking or whatever, this dude's coming out of nowhere and he's swatting it to hell. So that's definitely what makes him special. It's just the fact that he is really, really good athletically using his length to get those off. Multi-positional defender, you kind of can put him on just about anybody with his length, size, and speed. He can guard a lot of positions. And unfortunately with the video that I watched, once again, you see this in college a lot with guys. You try to see what they can do defensively, but the scheme that they have them in, you just don't get a real sample size of what they can do. This was that type of situation, but ultimately Jaden McDaniels showed that he has really, really crazy upside with this Minnesota Timberwolves team and probably should be the starting power forward on this team next year. He's just a fluid offensive athlete and could project to be their fourth best player behind Anthony Edwards, in my opinion. His brother plays for the Hornets, Jalen Mcdaniels. I didn't even know they were brothers, to be honest with you. I had mentioned these players off and on for the last year because I know of them in fantasy. Today was the actual first day I really did some homework on Jaden. So now I'm aware they are brothers, and I'm aware of Jaden more so. Just a really, really high-level scoring mid-range shooter with a lot of athleticism. And as he broke out last year, he really did. He had a fantastic rookie season for a team that really needed him to play well. And he's probably going to be the fourth. As I said, I think he'll be projected to be their fourth best player. The most fluid forward on this team in terms of scoring and just moving and all that. But as you can see, they got so much young talent at the forward position. So there isn't really a conversation of them needing to get a power forward. They just need to develop the forwards that they have and then find one or two of them that they like and just ship the other ones out. That's what they need to do. Just zero in on something that they like, rather than trying to go out and find a guy who you're going to have to pay $1 trillion to. Develop the guy you have. Do what you have to do. And that's the thing. Invest in the scouts that can make the player that you have the player that you want. I don't think teams do that enough. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems to me that we give up on guys a little too early in this league. I personally think if a guy's coming out, especially a one and done, you got to give him about 5 years. Give him about 5 years, and then you can start seeing what he's going to be from there. Let him get his body underneath him. Let him get his $1 million situations in order with his family and all that. Get all the stuff out the way. Get used to being rich. Get used to being an NBA player. Get used to the struggle of the schedule and all of that. Once you get that out the way, then you see the reps, the muscle that they've put on, the work that comes from getting their heart broken, knocked out of the playoffs, not playing, having different situations, then you start to understand over time, guys just start to get used to what it is and start growing from that point. You got to give them those first 3 years to just bump their head, break the ankle, make some mistakes, lose some money. And then the real progression starts when they get that foundation straightened out and progress from there with healthy seasons going forward. So you got to value these fourth-year guys, fifth-year guys a bit more than we have, especially the ones that were drafted in the back of the first round. Give them opportunities to show that they have put on the strength that ultimately would allow them to be the guy that they're going to be. Because usually 28th picks, 27th pick guys like that, they just need a whole lot more than the guys that are drafted at the top. It doesn't necessarily mean that they can't project to become what it is that you want them to be. It just means that they have to do more work. It takes more time. They're not as quick to learn or whatever. Who knows what it is? But the point is, you give them more time, and you will be happy with the production. And I think Jaden Mcdaniels and so many other players, Vanderbilt, Covey, Minnesota is a great case study for all of that. They just need to get the coaching in place. Well, they may already have. And the different specialists in place to basketball this situation out. Just basketball the hell out of these kids. Put them through basketball 101 school. Start them off on different stuff that they're just not doing to help them get the most out of their specific skills. That's the thing. You want Josh Okogie working on his strengths, but you got to get him working on the weaknesses too, especially the three-point shot for that particular player. Get him that, and he'll project to be much better than he is today. So that's what I got for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Just a whole lot of young potential, one of the best young cores in the league, honestly. Just a bunch of young guys, as I've read off to you guys. All of them have some upside, even though they're limited in their own way. They all are guys that I would welcome on my franchise. And I think they can come together to be really, really good. Big Cat's going to have to put on some weight, work on his lower body, do all the squats in the world to get himself in a position to be stronger, sturdier, and more of a force defensively. As long as he's not the defensive force that he needs to be, this team doesn't go as far as they go. I don't care how good the other defensive players are. At the end of the day, you can only play one or two of those guys because they all play the same position. So you must get more out of Cat defensively. Obviously, Anthony Edwards in his progression, you don't want to see him have a sophomore slump. And D'Lo, health. That's it. If he's healthy, he's an all-star, period. All right, this is the longest video I've done. I love doing homework on this team. Thank y'all, Minnesota, for having me. My name is BDL44. Y'all have a healthy and great season. Peace.